Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Mayor Rich Hill for the Village of Round Lake Beach. Welcome to tonight's Fireside Chat. It's always an honor to have people from all throughout Lake County come and visit us. Tonight we have Dr. Howard Cooper, our coroner of Lake County. A little history on Dr. Cooper. He's a lifelong resident of Lake County. He graduated from Loyola University in Chicago School of Dentistry in 1991. He has earned fellowship and mastership awards from the Academy of General Dentistry and was one of 3 people in the world to earn the Lifelong Learning Service Recognition Award the first year it was given. Dr. Cooper is also involved in organized dentistry. He has held multiple positions in many dental societies, including the position of president for the Lake County Dental Society, Chicago Dental Academy of General Dentistry, and Illinois Academy of General Dentistry. Dr. Cooper has also served his country by being part of 2 federal government teams, the Disaster Mortuary Operations Response Team and Disaster Mortuary Operational Response Team Weapons of Mass Destruction. He was activated for both September 11th disaster and the Hurricane Katrina disaster. In 2011, Dr. Cooper was awarded the Response Team Distinguished Member of the Year Award from the National Disaster Medical System. On a rare occasion that Dr. Cooper has some time off and takes a break, he thoroughly enjoys traveling and photographing the U.S. in his motorhome with his wonderful family. Welcome, Dr. Cooper.
Thank you very much.
Tonight we have Deputy Chief Mike Scott is going to be our moderator. I'll begin with just a couple of questions for Dr. Cooper here, and then we'll have Deputy Chief take over. Dr. Cooper, what is the mission or areas of responsibility of the coroner's office? And based on it also, what is the authority of the coroner?
So basically we're in charge of all the deaths in the county. We find the cause and manner of death, and that's what really we're charged with according to the state statute. So basically what that means is why did they die, how did they die, and we sort of categorize it. What was the second part?
Let's see. What is the authority of the coroner?
Oh, the authority of the coroner is actually identical to the sheriff. So I have all the same powers as the sheriff, and we're officers, of the law. So that's what it is.
Remember years ago when Barbara Richardson was the coroner, she had made a speech at one time saying that she is the only person in Lake County that can actually arrest the sheriff.
This is true. This is true, yes.
Proud of that.
If something happens, I would be the one to take care of that, yes. Hopefully we don't need that scandal in Lake County.
Absolutely. Next question. What is your background? How does it contribute to the coroner's office?
So I'm a dentist. I've been practicing for 26 years, and I've also been practicing forensic dentistry for 26 years. So with that, I would do dental identification of victims of whether it be anybody that you can't identify by other means. So it might be somebody in a fire, might be somebody in a car accident or things like that. Certainly the World Trade Center, when I went there with DMORT, there basically you're just having pieces of people. So that was my forensic background, and then I started working for coroners and medical examiners across the country, and doing dental identification also, and that's what really got me interested in becoming a coroner.
Have you ever been involved with the health department in any of that area?
No.
And my last question for you, what inspired you to actually run for coroner?
My real reason for running for coroner, I have 5 kids. And I saw that the heroin problem in our county was extensive. And when I tried to get into the schools and I wanted to talk to kids, and they looked at me and they're like, "You're a dentist, we don't want to talk to you." And it bothered me because I was familiar with what was going on and I wanted to have a voice. And I thought that this would definitely be my way in to do that. And it is, and it's actually been very good. We've been doing some really positive stuff in that arena.
Yeah, having that title, I'm sure, opens the doors for you to get in there and
it does.
That.
It does.
The heroin issue came about kind of quickly in most of the communities, even around Lake Beach for a while. We were saying, no, it's not happening here, but it was. The more we started looking into it, and we jumped on board as soon as the county came out with the heroin and naloxone and all to get it in our hands of our police officers, and that's worked.
And it's actually in our office as well. All of my deputies and myself, we carry it as well.
Oh, wonderful.
It's really an important drug. I mean, it's done a lot of good. I mean, I think the police are up to in our county over 150 saves.
Wow.
So it's really nice.
Yeah, that's
which keeps my office less busy, which is really nice for that.
Definitely. It's unfortunate though that so many of those people that are saved tend to go back to using again.
They
within
do, and
several months.
that's the hard part of heroin.
Yes.
It's different than any other drug that there is. You know, it's something that they're going to have to fight, and we need to be supportive of that, and we need to help in any way we can, because it's a tough addiction.
Yeah, very addictive. Right. I'll turn over to Deputy Chief Scott.
As long as we're talking about the heroin problem, in your role, do you or your office have any input in any policies throughout the county, or are there any educational programs that you're involved in the heroin epidemic?
Sure. You know, I'm involved with the Lake County Opiate Initiative, so I work with that group, which is just a great group of people. And then I've been putting together a program where we're getting into, my goal is to get into all the high schools by next year. So that's what we're putting together now. We're actually going to be speaking at one high school with sort of our pilot program next week, and we're going to make a difference.
Excellent. Recently, we had 2 unfortunate deaths in our town. How does the coroner's office interact with local law enforcement? Well, you and I have interacted quite a bit recently. For those of you, the audience that aren't aware
I
of...
get nervous when my cell phone rings and I see it's you. I'm like, oh, no.
Yes.
Now what?
For everyone else that doesn't have that ability to know how you interact with law enforcement, if you could explain that a little bit.
Sure. Basically, someone from the law enforcement, or it could be fire, would call us and let us know that there's a death, something has happened in the county or in their area, and then we get called out, and my deputies will go. I try to get to every scene that I can as well. I really appreciate the way that we work well with the police. You know, certainly we have an investigation to do because, like I said before, you know, it's my job to investigate the death and figure out what happened, but we obviously work with the police hand in hand because they have an investigation to do also, because maybe that person died in a mysterious way or something happened. So it's really nice. I mean, we get to work together a lot, and it's just a great relationship.
Well, I know firsthand that you've reached out to many departments throughout the county. I think you've done breakfast with some of the chiefs.
All the chiefs, yeah.
You were at the Lake County Chiefs of Police Association yesterday addressing them.
Yeah.
So I compliment you on getting out and making yourself familiar, and we actually know who you are when we see you. I think several of my officers, in one way or another, unfortunately, do recognize you more than we would like to right now, but I think that's great that you're getting out throughout the county.
But it's good. It's, you know, I mean, the thing that I hear a lot is everybody's really surprised to see me. And, you know, even my deputies have said, you know, one of my deputies said, you know, he's like, Doc, I've been on the job 9 years, and I've only been out to scenes with twice with the coroner, and both times were with you. So, I mean, it's even, you know, I mean, all my deputies, they've never gone out with the coroner, and so it's really nice. They like it. They like that I'm there. I get to see what they see, and it really helps me, again, because I need to sign off on what we're seeing, and it really helps me to be able to understand what was seen, what happened, and I can put things together a lot better than just seeing pictures and you know, not knowing what really happened. So it's a benefit, I think.
Well, and I think it makes our departments able to work with the coroner's office, not just yourself, but the office itself, by actually seeing faces and people and
Sure.
being able to put those together. We talked about the heroin epidemic, but besides that, is there any other community awareness, counseling, or education programs that the coroner's office participates in?
Yeah, I mean, we do other stuff. We have, you know, we're going to be putting together some, another thing that I want to do is put together a suicide program, a prevention program. But there's so many things that we can do. I mean, I really think that the coroner's office is about death prevention. So whatever it may be, whether it's alcohol, texting and driving, I mean, there's so many different things we can talk about. So we're getting out and we're going to start putting together a lot more programs. The heroin thing is my first thing. The other thing that I do is I actually have a daughter who is going through driver's ed now. And she's my fourth daughter to go through driver's ed, which if all of you that have kids know that that's a really scary time when they start driving. And the nice thing is that the teacher, she's taking it through a private school, and like, you know, most of our kids do. And the teacher actually reached out to me and asked if I would come speak. And so I've been involved with that, talking to the new drivers about, you know, alcohol and driving defensively, and, you know, all the things that I see as the coroner. And it's been really nice. We've been well received, and I'm gonna continue to do that, even though now I don't have to talk to her class again, but I'll be talking to the other classes, and it's gonna be a really good thing. That'll be a good partnership.
Having a loved one die is stressful enough, but having them pass away in the home can even be worse for the survivors.
Sure.
If someone were to have a loved one pass away in the home and the coroner comes out to the home, what could the survivors, the loved ones, expect from the interaction with the coroners?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing is, we'll sit down with the person and just sort of go over, we really just tell them, what we're there to do. And, basically we have to take photos. We have to look at the scene and see what happened, because again, we have to try to piece everything together and figure out what happened in the situation. And it may be a natural death, it might be a suicide, it might be an overdose. It could be so many different things. So we have to sort of figure it out. So we'll just explain all that, and then depending on what the situation is, we'll be able to offer that person help with whatever they need. And then we also talk about, that they need to look for a funeral home, and that's the next step. But the nice thing is that, there's never a rush. We are always there for the families, and we'll do anything we can to help the families. And, it's really the hardest time in anybody's life to deal with that type of situation. So, we're there for the people. So, that's what we do. And then obviously the end result is that we would take their loved one away with us and bring them back to our office for whatever the investigation would be, whether it be an autopsy or maybe just a toxicology screen. It just sort of depends. But we would explain all that to the people.
You obviously deal with the death in the body. Do you participate in any part of the criminal investigation, or is that is there a clear line between what you do and the police do, or is that intermingled?
It really intermingles because, our autopsy is really important to gather the, really, again, the cause, what happened. And it works hand in hand with the police because, what we find will determine, if it's going to be a criminal case, it'll determine maybe what kind of charges are brought up. So we'll work with the police and with the state's attorney. It'll also be if, let's say, it's a drug deal or something, there may be a criminal investigation based on a dealer or something like that. So really everything that we do is really hand in hand. Our department is medical and legal, and it really works with the police every day. We have police in our office every day watching our autopsies and working with us. We also do notifications, when we have somebody that dies in, some type of accident or whatever it may be, and a lot of times we'll go with the police to make a notification. So that is also how we work with the police.
Now, the people that used to come out all the time, besides yourself, is that the deputy coroner? Is that what their title is?
Yes.
How many people are how many deputy coroners are there, and how many people are in your office?
So we have 7 deputy coroners, then I also have a chief deputy, and then we have a toxicologist. We're actually the only coroner's office in Illinois with a toxicology lab, which is really helpful. And then we have some admin as well.
We think of you as the coroner, it's that person. Then you've got the deputy coroners. Do you actually perform any of the autopsies? We think of you're the person, right, because of the title.
Sure.
Is that something you actually perform or not?
So the interesting thing is that by law, the coroner is not allowed to perform autopsies. So we have to hire a forensic pathologist, and we have 2 that work as independent contractors coming through our office, and they actually do the autopsy. I try to be present at as many autopsies as I can. It gives me a good insight, again, as to what happened. If I see an accident, I can, when we are performing the autopsy, we can see what was broken, what happened, did the aorta burst? There's so many things that go into it, and it's really helpful for me to be there. So I get to see a lot of stuff, but I actually don't have to perform anything.
There's been a lot of conversation concerning whether the coroner's office position should be an elected position or an appointed position. You're currently elected, correct?
I am, yes.
Do you have any opinion or thoughts on if that's the best way or if there should be changes?
Sure. So the coroner is an elected position, like you said. The only appointed position is a medical examiner. So in Illinois, all of our counties in Illinois are coroner counties, with the exception of Cook, and that's a medical examiner system. So in that situation, the county board would appoint a medical examiner, and then that person runs the office. From my point of view, I think it should stay a coroner system, and I think it should stay an elected position, because I really believe in giving the power to the people. I think it's important that if the coroner is not doing the job that they should, then the people have the power to vote that person out and vote somebody else in after 4 years. And I think that's an important thing to be able to do. I think the more that the people have control over it, it's really better in anything. I mean, I just think that our vote should count for something.
Did you say your term is 3?
4 years.
4 years? And are there any term limits, or can that be unlimited?
There are not, no.
Okay.
So hopefully when I'm 90, I'll still be here.
We'll have you back. Are there any areas of expertise in this field that are so narrow or require such an expert that you guys actually have to bring someone in from the outside? I mean, you have the dental side, which I think most people would have never thought of. We've heard of that on TV.
Yeah.
But are there any others that you would actually either have to hire out someone local, bring someone out of state, from a distance, or send things away for examination?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the situation, but, we had a skeleton that we found in Waukegan not that long ago, and for that we brought in a forensic anthropologist. So that would be somebody that could look at those bones, and they have a very, narrow scope of what they do. I mean, they can look at that and they can decide, age, sex, all different things based on the bones. So we would bring in a specialist for something like that. Now maybe we would find a body where it's in a state of decomposition and there are certain bugs that are present. And we can then hire an entomologist, a bug specialist, where they can actually look at the type of flies or the type of maggots that are there, and they can actually tell, how long has it been there, where was it found. So there's a lot of different subspecialties within the forensic science field that we can use. Certainly a forensic dentist, which is called an odontologist, is another one. And we have brought in an odontologist to do it. Again, it's considered a dental autopsy, so even though I can do it, I still can't, even though I know how. So I would bring in someone else also to do that, and we have. So there's some really good subspecialties in the forensic field that really help us to do what we need to do.
I'm sure there's a lot of different challenges. You're an elected official. You're very busy out here. What would you say is the most challenging part of your job?
I don't think there's really anything that I didn't expect. I would probably say the stuff that is the most challenging is working with the county on things that I just didn't really think about, like budget and finance, and being at the department head meetings, and just a lot of different meetings that I never really thought about. I thought about going to scenes and figuring out cause of death and that kind of stuff. I didn't really think about all the admin stuff that was really outside of the office per se. But I don't really think any of it is really challenging to the point where you can't, I wasn't really surprised. It's just, there are things that you're just busy doing, so it just makes me a little busier.
Coroner's inquest, many of us have heard the term. Mm-hmm. What does that actually involve? Where is it held? Who presides over it? Is there a jury?
There is.
What's the process for that?
So in most counties nowadays, most of the counties don't have inquests anymore. So there are certain times, though, where we will have an inquest because it gives the power of cause and manner of death to the people. So we would have, like if there's a case, let's say that I really can't make a decision, or I'm not really sure what happened, and I think that it would be an inquest case, we would get a jury of 6 people. We could have it really anywhere. It could be at our office, it could be at the courthouse. And there'd be a stenographer there. The person that presides, or the judge, I guess you'd say, would be myself. And we bring in expert witnesses, and the deputies can be there and, tell what they saw, or police, or, whoever. I mean, it could be anybody for witnesses. And then the jury is actually allowed to ask questions. It's a little bit different than a regular courtroom. And then the jury would leave and go deliberate, and then they would have to find the cause and manner of death. The interesting thing about an inquest is that once they reach that decision, it cannot be changed. Whereas if I find cause and manner of death, and let's say there's some new evidence, I can actually change my mind. I can change that legally. Whereas once it's gone to an inquest, it can never be changed. That is the decision, and that's final.
So what sends it to the inquest then?
Me. It's all based on what I feel is necessary. So there's no, it used to be in Illinois, everything had to go to an inquest. The law changed late 2000s, I believe 2007, I'm not positive. But when the law changed, it changed to, the wording was the coroner may ask for an inquest, instead of the fact that we had to have an inquest. So it really is up to my discretion.
The person overseeing this, are they more familiar with law, or are they in any way educated in medical procedures?
As far as
Like the judge?
well, the judge would be me.
Oh, okay.
So it would be whoever got elected coroner.
Okay.
Would actually run the inquest.
Is
So
it-
we would call witnesses. We would do everything, but there's not really attorneys. There's not. It's really just all informational, just so the jury can understand this is what we saw. This is what happened, and then they deliberate as to, what they decide happened.
Is that a closed process like grand jury, or is that an open process like a courtroom? In other words, can anybody attend?
It's like a courtroom. Yeah, anybody could attend, but they can't ask questions. Only the jury can ask questions.
Does the coroner's office offer any internships or apprenticeships for anyone?
We do. I have people calling all the time asking if they can come in and see things, if we have things going. I know this summer we're going to have an intern who's going to college, and she really wanted to see more about the forensic world, and that's what she wants to do. And so she's going to be in with us for the summer, and it'll give her a really great opportunity to see what we do and make sure it's a good field that she wants to go into.
I don't know how many deaths we have here in Lake County. Do you have any idea on autopsies? In a year, and I understand that can vary greatly.
And we probably do 300 to 350, I would think, a year, somewhere around there. It just depends. It really depends on what happens. I mean, we don't have to do an autopsy on every single person. I mean, there's a lot more deaths than that. I mean, we probably have about 5,000 deaths. So, it really depends on the situation. If somebody's in hospice and they pass away, we're not going to do an autopsy on somebody like that. I mean, the doctor can sign the death certificate. They know what happened. It's very apparent. Now, if there's, circumstances that we're not sure about, then we absolutely will. All of our drug deaths we do autopsies on, which is standard. We do toxicology on a lot of different people as well. So that's a really important thing, because it gives us insight as to, what did they do, what happened, were they impaired? I mean, there's a lot of important things with that as well.
That's all the questions I have. Is there anything else about your office that I haven't asked that you'd like to talk about?
I think we've got a great office. It's really nice going in to work in the field that we are, and it's obviously we deal with death every single day, and it's really nice to work with amazing people who really care about their job and care about the people. I've been involved in different things where I've heard how people tell somebody that somebody's dead, and I hear how our people do it. And our people really take the time to explain things, and to be is empathetic and really sincere as we can be with the families. And that's really an important thing. I mean, again, this is the worst time in somebody's life, and these are the people that we serve. I mean, they're our friends, they're our neighbors, they're people that, if we don't know them, somebody else knows them, and it's really nice to be able to work with a great group of people. And it's great working with the different departments in the area who also really care about their jobs and want to find out the truth as to what happened. And last night we were on a scene until 2 in the morning, and everybody's there and everybody's working and everybody's trying to figure out what happened and doing their job. And it's really a nice feeling to go into a scene where everybody cares. It's really great.
You mentioned you and your employees going out and making notifications. If a death were to occur out of state, and I'm not just talking like across the border in Wisconsin, but a great distance, do you work with those coroner's offices, or do you work with all other police departments to have those loved ones notified?
Yeah, it depends. I would, first and foremost, I would call the office and talk with the coroner and ask them to make a notification. I know in Illinois, all of our coroners, I mean, that's standard, we do that, and we have a really great group of coroners, and everybody's willing to make notifications for each other. I have gone down to Cook County and made notifications down there, and then I would call the police department, because the ME system, it's crazy busy down there, so they prefer just to have the police do it. So I call the police departments, and then I would go out to the house with the police. And they've actually been really nice to work with as well. I mean, when you're doing this, I mean, it's really the worst part of my job is ringing a doorbell in the middle of the night. I mean, there's no doubt about it. When I'm pushing that doorbell, I know I am gonna ruin somebody's life. That's just what it is. And it stinks, but that's my job and I have to do it. And again, you try to get the family through it and to give them the help that they need and to be there for them. And if I'm there for an hour or I'm there for 2 hours, and whatever we need to do, if we have to wait for family to come, because I don't want to necessarily leave somebody alone at 1:30 in the morning. So, we do whatever it takes is the bottom line, just to make sure that we're there for the people.
Well, I think it's obvious from what you're talking about, your office does much more than most of us would think of with the family. Like you said, you stay there until they get there.
Sure.
So who does the coroner's office answer to? Who do you, and obviously not the sheriff, evidently. No. So who do you report to?
I mean, I don't really report to anybody. I'm sort of at the high end of the chain, I guess. Really, I mean, the only oversight for our office would be the county board. Whether it be budget and things like that. I mean, that's who we would go to, is the county board. But I mean, there's nobody that I have to check in with, and I mean, we really run our own office ourselves. But I mean, I still have to go in front of the board to get money and to make sure my budget's good, and to ask for things and things that we want to do. I mean, really, it all revolves around money, with the board. But we can do whatever we want. Our programs are our own, and I don't really have anybody that I need to, ask permission per se. But that being said, the county board they're great people to work with, and I mean, we've had some board members come to our office and take tours, and they're really interested in what we do. And I've been on scenes where county board members have called me, and they have a scene in their area, and they want to make sure that the coroner was called, and they want to give some input, and it's nice. It's nice that they care. So it's really been good.
Mayor, did you have any other questions, or would you like me to open this up?
Not really too much. Just there's been a lot of reality TV series, as you know, the NCIS, CSI, all those. When people see those on TV versus what you do in reality, are there some differences that are pretty stark differences,
Yeah.
or are they pretty similar?
I mean, they're similar in the fact that they're doing investigating like we do investigating. The fact that they can do a test in 23 minutes is so cool, but it takes us 9 months.
Yeah.
So it's a little different. I mean, the big thing is that it's TV and the stuff that they come up with. I remember this one episode where this bomb blew up right in this briefcase bomb exploded, and it blew off the guy's ears, and the investigator's like, the Van Gogh effect. And I'll never forget the Van Gogh effect. And that same amount of explosive would have blown up like 2 city blocks. So there wouldn't have been a Van Gogh effect. So there's some stuff that's really far-fetched. And the tests that they do, obviously they're doing it between commercials, and we don't have that luxury. So, but I mean, like I said, I mean, we can do toxicology and stuff, which is really a bonus for us, but it'll still take, an hour. And we still can't get the full toxicology results, but we get a really great handle on what's going on. So it's very helpful for us. But, they're a little far-fetched, but they're entertaining. They're good shows.
Well, we in Round Lake Beach really appreciate your office's response time and how quickly you guys arrived on scene and helped us out with the difficult situations that do arise in any town in Lake County, and we appreciate that very much.
Well, thanks.
We do have some time for some questions. Anyone in the audience have any questions? We have a microphone here.
First off, Dr. Cooper, thank you for coming tonight. And speaking to everyone, did I hear correctly? Did you say your fourth daughter? How many daughters do you have?
Only 4.
4, okay.
Yeah.
That's
least
enough.
I have
That's a
one
lot of.
son.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. That brings me to my next question for both of you, for you also, Mayor, is that you guys are obviously public figures and have children. How do you balance being a public figure and obviously, I'm sure the mayor is very grateful that his job is very different than yours, but you're still a public figure. How do you balance the questions that your kids have, especially as they get older? Dad, what is it that you do? Starting with you, Mayor, how do you balance that, and what do you tell your kids, and how do you have them understand what your duties are?
Well, when my kids were younger, when I first got into politics, they actually came to many of the meetings with me. They sit in the audience and do their homework or whatever. So they participate a little bit and pay attention and kind of see firsthand what I did. As they got older, they kind of understood a little bit more. As we were pretty young, they were like, okay, whatever, Dad, you go do your thing, leave us alone. But now that they're older and they're all grown up, moved out of the house, they really appreciate what a public servant does and the time they put in, because they know as kids sometimes I said, well, I can't do that with you tonight, kids. I have to go to this meeting or that meeting. And they don't always understand back then, but now they do. And it was not easy. And whenever you're dealing with kids, they have their own sense of what's most important, and most of the time they're right, what's most important. But sometimes you have to balance that between work life and family life. It's been very exciting for the kids. Some of the things they've been able to go and do with me, most kids never have an opportunity to do.
Yeah, and I would say very similarly. I mean, my kids have, walked to get signatures and walked in parades and, gone to lots of different events. And I mean, I think for the most part, they had a really good time. After the 9th parade, I think they were a little tired. But we made everything fun. And, I have some kids that are a lot older and still some little ones, so it's probably different for them. As far as the political stuff, I've always been involved in one way or another in politics, not so much, this type, but in, the dental field and stuff. So they've always been involved in that and have always seen what I've done ever since they were little. And then they've always seen my forensic stuff. I was always very open with them. After 9/11, I came home and I showed them all my pictures. I mean, I have thousands of pictures from 9/11, and I went over everything with them so they could see what happened. I mean, we're a pretty patriotic family, so I mean, I just think that those things are really important. With Katrina, when I got called, kids were at school, and on the WMD team, we don't have like an end date. I didn't know when I was going to come home, and I went to their school, and the school was really great, and they pulled all the kids out of class, and so they could say goodbye to me because I was leaving, in an hour. So they've always understood that I've always done these types of things. So none of this surprised them, but I think they like it. I think they enjoy they like hearing that I'm involved, and they like, I think they get a kick out of the fact that their dad's involved in some really neat things and does some really cool stuff and works with really great people. So I think they like it.
I would suspect, just going back to something that Deputy Chief Scott asked, I suspect that you don't have to report to anyone because no one wants to see the coroner on your caller ID, so I don't think they would answer the phone.
That could be. That could be. I make people nervous.
Any other questions from the audience?
Wondering, what's the difference between the coroner system and the medical examiner?
So the big difference is that the medical examiner system is appointed. So, and the other difference is that the coroner is an elected position. So even though I have a forensic background, I don't have to be. I mean, anybody here that is 18 years old, is a voter in this county, can run, and doesn't have a record, can run for the office. Medical examiner is an appointed position, and they are forensic pathologists. So they actually do the autopsy. So that's the main difference between the two systems.
Remember years ago, the old Quincy ME. That's
Well,
where
see,
we all
that's
remember that.
how I got started in all this. I wanted to be Quincy when I was a kid.
I think we all did.
Yeah, oh, he's Jack Klugman. You can't go wrong with him.
So Dr. Cooper, tying into what you just said, as the coroner, you don't necessarily have to have a medical background.
Correct.
How about your deputy coroners? Are they in the medical profession?
None of them need to be in the medical profession. They're investigators, so they have, evidence, tech training. They have a lot of different. I mean, I'm really big on the continuing education, so they go to a lot of continuing education, and it might be, all different things, whether it be a gang violence class or something on blood spatter. I mean, different suicide trainings. All sorts of stuff we'll train for, and anything that'll further their knowledge to be able to allow them to do their jobs better. So I'm big on that.
Do you have many former police officers apply for those positions?
We do have some. I mean, our prerequisite for our office is they have to either have police training or prior military. So we want, again, our office is very different because we're working with dead people. So we can't just have somebody off the street that's never seen a dead person that's gonna faint. I mean, they're probably just not the job for them. So we do want them to have experience in other places so that way, I mean, it doesn't have to be anything major, but again, those two avenues lend themselves to that. So at least we know that they're committed and that they understand what they're getting into. It's a very different job. I mean, it really is. And we see some pretty horrific things, unfortunately.
Can't imagine.
Good evening. Thank you for coming this evening, sir.
Thank you.
I command the midnight shift here for the Round Lake Beach Police Department. What can we do as supervisors, first-line supervisors, and in law enforcement to help out your agency on crime scenes that we're not doing now or things that we're doing that might be sometimes hinder the investigations?
I mean, the main thing that we love a heads up as soon as you know that something's going on, as soon as you know that there's somebody that's deceased, give us a call. I mean, we're ready. We want to get there as soon as possible. Because the thing is, the really important thing is, when we get notification right away, we can be there right away. And number one, we can help the family right away, and we can make things go faster. And as far as the investigation, we really, love you guys to let us know what's happened, and then we'll work the scene with you together. The thing that's tough for us is if we come into a place where we can't see what originally was there because the scene was moved or stuff was picked up and bagged, then it makes our job a little bit tougher. So we appreciate being there and doing everything with you guys. That makes both of our jobs real easy. We can get photos at the same time, work the scene together, and then pick each other's brains as to what we find or what we need to do and work together. And that makes it go really, really smooth. The other thing about timely notification is it makes it better for the family, because if you guys, let's say you go through the scene in a couple hours and then you call us, well then we've got to go through that scene. It makes the whole process a lot longer for the families. And it's hard on the families. It's a tough time, they're upset, and it's just the faster we can do it and get them on their way to healing is really better. It's tough. I mean, we see kids and we see, no matter who we see, the thing is that it's somebody's loved one. And no matter who it is and how old they are, it's a horrible time for people. So we really want to try to minimize the hardness of it.
Any other questions?
How do you stay emotionally disconnected from all that?
I don't know that we do. I mean, I think if you're completely disconnected, it becomes old hat and you almost don't care. So I think we're actually very connected to it. I just think that, I think maybe just the people that do this type of stuff can compartmentalize things differently. Obviously, if, I see stuff that's just, it's insane. So, I mean, I have to feel. I mean, it's, you know, there are things that are awful, and I do feel bad, and, you know, you do want to cry. I think that's why, I think that's why I'm good at what I do. I think that when you become hardened to it and you're totally disconnected, it's like, yeah, you know, Jimmy's dead. Yeah, any questions? You know, I think that's what ends up happening, and that's the worst thing. I think if that does happen, it's time for me to walk away, you know.
Any other questions tonight?
You mentioned you were down in the team that went down in Katrina.
Sure.
And, you know, we always talk about preparing for emergency disasters and when county, you know, thankfully in my life, I've never seen anything like that up here. But any kind of takeaways that you learned down there in your experience to come back here and see things that we're doing in the county that you somehow can say, hey, look, you know what, this is what I learned down here. You guys got
Sure. Yeah, and I think that's one thing that I bring to the table is that I do have these experiences, and we do have meetings with EMS, and you know, the emergency plan for the county, we're involved in that, and we were in a great tabletop. Basically, it was a nationwide scenario where there was an active shooter in a mall, and it was really great that we could be a part of that and, you know, talk about from the emergency aspect what would happen and what our office would do. And being that I've been in situations where we've had a lot of victims at one point in time, you know, in a fast point in time, you know, it's valuable, I think. And it's great being at that table, and I think when you plan for different events and when you look at the things that can happen in here, whether it's an active shooter, whether it's a tornado situation, a flood, you know, you do plan for those things. And when you plan and you know who the players are and you know who you need to call and what resources you have, I think it makes things go way smoother. The reality is it's going to be chaos, but it'll be an organized chaos. And organized chaos works. Disorganized chaos doesn't work. So it's, you know, nothing's going to go perfectly smooth, but I think if you know who to call, you know who to contact, you know what your resources are, it makes things go way better. And that's what we're doing. And, you know, I'm getting involved and we're talking to the right people, and it's been great that the people have been receptive to me and our office in those situations, and they've been great. They've been very welcoming, and they ask my opinion, and you know, I can tell them what I know from what I've seen and what I did. And you know, for Katrina, I mean, we did body recovery and decontamination. I mean, we were all over, you know, picking up people, and you know, it was a big task down there. So I mean, I'm very familiar with how it works. So it's good. It's good that I think that I had that experience, and I can certainly bring it to the county.
Other questions from the audience?
I think we had probably just one last one. Community Service America, Lana's had a question that she wanted to ask.
With the differences in the community of ethnicities, how does your office deal with that? You know, with being the nationalities, you know, being Hispanic and being, you know, Polish and Russian. I know that in our field we often have issues with that. So how does your office deal with that when having to make notifications or?
Yeah, I mean, certainly, you know, if we go to a place where, you know, the language is different, I mean, we would obviously have to bring somebody with us that speaks that language. You know, we have a number of people in our department, so we can certainly pick different people for different tasks, no question about it. But I think, you know, we're there for the people, and so we're going to do everything in our power to work with our resources. And we do have great resources to use. So no matter where we have to go, we can, you know, talk to the people, we can look at different situations and be able to adapt to whatever we need to do. And it, you know, it works. It just works.
We talked about heroin deaths. There's traffic accidents deaths. There's a lot of deaths that are not natural causes. Is there anything that stands out as the predominant cause of death other than natural causes?
I mean, the big thing that I see a lot of is, I mean, heroin. There's no question about it. It's an epidemic. It's something that we see it all the time. And the thing is that we see it in every neighborhood. It's not in one area of the county, and it's not in an area where they're uneducated or poor, or it's everywhere. And it doesn't matter what your upbringing was, we see it in every single part of our county. And that's the thing that I think, people don't understand. They always think it happens somewhere else, it happens somewhere else. But it happens in your backyard. It happens in your high school. It happens to your neighbors. It happens to your friends. And that's the thing that, unfortunately there's a stigma that it just doesn't happen to us. It doesn't happen at our high school. I hear that all the time. It does. And we know it does because I see it, And it's at home. I mean, I've had friends that have lost. I just had a very good friend of mine, somebody I'm on a weapons of mass destruction team with. Her younger brother just died of a heroin overdose over the weekend. And, and actually one of my patients, a longtime patient of mine, I saw her on my autopsy table, and I have to talk to her parents who are also patients of mine, and I watched her grow up. It's real. It's real situations, it's real people. And that's probably the hardest thing, and it's tough to make people understand, and there's such a bad stigma with it, but the reality is people don't choose to be heroin addicts. It happens because of other situations. It happens because a doctor had prescribed drugs for them because of an injury. And just like that, they became addicted to something that spiraled out of control. And there's a lot of those stories, and we need to get out there and really combat that and make a difference.
There's been a lot of talk about legalizing marijuana in several other states, and I know Illinois has discussed it a couple times too. They already have medical marijuana here. Being that heroin is such a deadly drug and marijuana is referred to as a gateway drug quite often, do you have an opinion on whether that's something that should remain illegal or should...
I still believe that marijuana is a gateway drug. I don't see any good coming out of legalizing it. I do understand there's a lot of great tax implications,
yes.
And I know it's a big money maker. I have friends that are school teachers in Colorado, and I talked to them and I said, tell me about, the marijuana. Is it a problem? Because, we hear that, oh, it's fine, there's no issues, no problems at all. Now, they both told me, and they're at different schools, but they both told me that it's a mess. Wow. These kids come to school, they're high all the time, and they're not smoking it. The biggest problem is the edibles. So there's kids eating brownies and cookies at lunch, and they don't know what's in them, and these kids end up being high, and it's sometimes difficult unless they're totally out of control to send them home, but it's a problem. Their scores on tests are definitely not as high. I mean, these are teachers that have been in the profession for over 20 years. Mm-hmm. They have seen scores get lower since this has happened. I mean, so, there's always going to be people saying, on both sides of the fence. I just know these are people that I trust. I value their opinion, and I just don't see any good coming out of it. I think anything that impairs you in any way, I don't see where there's good. I just don't. But,
Yeah, I'm sure we'll hear a lot more discussion on this in the next several months, if not next year, because I know the state, as you mentioned, about the money, and that's a bad aspect to pass any law is for the money only.
Yeah, but it's billions of dollars.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that's the way things work sometimes. Oh. And it's too bad, because I really think that our kids are the ones that are going to suffer. Mm-hmm. I see too much stuff. I mean, I really do. And it's funny, I talked to, at the driver's ed class, when I talk to the kids, at the beginning I'm saying, and I know you guys see alcohol, and I know you see drugs, and you know what I'm talking about, and they're all looking at me and shaking their head. And after an hour and 20 minutes, all of a sudden they start with the stories. I was at a party, and I saw them put all these pills into a bowl. And I saw, so we know that these things are true, and people don't want to believe it, but your kids know. And, again, by the end of 2 hours, I've got kids telling me stories that are totally out of control, and that parents are totally involved. I mean, even more out of control. So, people can bury their heads so much, but these things happen, and you got to talk to your kids, and, I mean, the biggest thing in that I say, and that I say this to my kids every single day. You know, I drive my kids to school, and I drop them off, and my last thing to them is make good choices. And it sounds silly, and you know, people laugh, and my daughter's like, oh, okay, Dad, you know, but it's true. I mean, everything we do is a choice. If you're on a sport team and you choose not to practice, you're not going to play well. If you choose not to do your homework, you're not going to get a good grade. If you choose to drink, something bad's going to happen. I mean, everything in our life is a choice, no matter what we do. You know, if you speed, if you know, everything. It's all about making good choices. And it sounds like such a simple thing to say, but it's probably the most important statement in all of our lives.
Choices and decisions, they have consequences, good or bad.
Every single one does, yeah. You know, and when I talk to the kids, I do tell them, I mean, you know, you study really hard and you get a good grade. You practice really hard, you do well on the field. You know, I mean, some have really good consequences, but some have really bad consequences. And sometimes those really bad consequences don't just affect that person, they affect other families and other people, and it can go on exponentially. It's, you know, it's bad. And the problem is, you know, I see it every day. So it's, you know, I have to talk about that stuff because it's important to me.
And as a parent, it's like anything else, you repeat, eventually it starts sinking in.
Yeah.
You really hope that's for you, especially your own kids.
And I think if you talk to your kids as adults and explain things and explain, you know, why, you know, our society it's a crazy place, and they've got to understand that from a young age, to understand really what they've got to do to navigate through it. It's not easy. It's certainly not easy.
A lot of temptations out there.
And there's a lot of stress on the kids. There's a lot of pressure on the kids. Yeah. And, you know, with all my kids, I mean, they always know that no matter what happens, I'm there for them. And I'd much rather get a phone call, Dad, something happened, come pick me up, than them getting in a car with somebody who's impaired, or them driving, or, you know, I just want to know my kids are safe. We'll deal with the rest later, but I just want my kids safe.
I think we all agree with that.
You know?
Well, Dr. Cooper, thank you. Just a quick announcement. Our next Fireside Chat is going to be with the Lake County Circuit Court, Clerk of the Circuit Court, Aaron Weinstein, on Thursday, June 8th, 2017, right here at 6 p.m. And then in July 13th, we have State Representative Sam Yingling is going to join us on Thursday, July 13th. So we'll look forward to those two. And Doctor, again, thank you very much for being here. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Always give everyone a little pin from Raleigh Beach here as a thank you for joining us.
Great, thanks a lot.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone.